Our objective is a revolution in national security policy. That summarizes what our project is, and it's based on about three principles. First of all, that fear is not a basis for national security policy. Second, we do not believe one party or the other can or should try to own the mandate of national security for this great country. And three, we also believe in this new century that national security will have new meanings and broader meanings than it did as recently as a few years ago. We see no conflict in this report and beyond between our country's security and the security of our citizens and our constitutional principles and ideals. We do not have to sacrifice the latter.
Ladies and gentlemen, on 9/11 we were victimized twice. 19 hijackers victimized us, and then we victimized ourselves. In our fear and our anger, we turned that snarling face to the world. We feel now, the Republicans and the Democrats who are assembled here with you today, that it's time to sort of recalibrate and reset.
Making foreign policy in a democracy requires that people really have facts and understand what the reality of the choices are. Those facts have been obscured, or in some cases, people have been misled. And one of the principles that brings us together is the importance of that informed consent being present in any effort that we make that requires American forces to be committed or requires a long-term, significant financial and moral commitment such as we must engage in order to really protect this great country of ours. America's interests will be best protected, that our security will be best defined if we restore that bipartisanship and come together around a fundamental understanding of how you make America stronger and more secure in the world. That's why I think the work of the American Security Project is in fact so important, to forge a bipartisan consensus with respect to the security strategy we need for the 21st century, and also to try to build across the country a better understanding of the choices, because in the end, our ability to prosecute any strategy is going to depend on the American people's understanding of what that strategy is.
Sitting here, I recall about a year ago meeting with 12 foreign ambassadors to talk about the state of the world. And what each of them said, and they came from everywhere from the Czech Republic to Portugal to the Congo, etc. But they all said that what was missing today in the world is the leadership of the United States of America. That didn't mean, as each said, that they would always agree with America, but we need, as Rich said, that shining city on a hill, because we all aspire to be part of that. As I travel around the country, our country, what I keep hearing is from the citizens the hope of bipartisanship, of working together, and to stop with the ideological food fights that, in fact, are really hurting and taking the country down. I think, with the exception of the cable talking heads and maybe the far left and the far right, everybody is together on figuring out ways to work together. The power of working together. The power of saying we have to figure out ways to work together, not just here at home with allies and adversaries, but almost as fundamental, working overseas with allies and adversaries is fundamental to making this new strategy work.
That we want to prolong and preserve our preeminence as a force for good as long as humanly possible. And as Senator Hart mentioned, we're blessed. We have the finest military in the world, and they will always defeat our enemies in battle. But militaries are not ideally suited to fight ideas or climate change or economic disparities and things of that nature. So we need to go and develop new tools and put other tools in our toolbox. We've got to meld our soft power and our hard power into something that is now being called smart power. And at the end of the day, if we want to regain our moral standing in the world, and this citizen certainly does, we've got to, again, remember the words of Ronald Reagan when he talked about the image of the United States being a shining city on a hill, and not have the image of the United States be Abu Ghraib or Guantanamo.
We have an awful lot of problems and challenges in front of us. I remember the bipartisanship of the 80s when I was privileged to work in the White House. And yes, it was not nirvana, it was not utopia. We had our dust-ups, but we had a common feeling that at the end of the day we would come together to work together to make it better, not only for the country, but also to help change the world. And I think this new arsenal lays out not just the issues, but a path of getting that done as we confront these new challenges of the 21st century, whether it's food, whether it's climate change, whether it's trade, let alone your usual arsenal of national security issues.
In my 35 years in the United States Air Force, I always felt that our United States never fully used all the tools, all the quivers, if you will, in its arsenal. We never really used everything we could to address our national security needs. I gave a speech not too long ago at the National War College here at Fort McNair, not too far from here, and the focus was on national security. And what I was trying to do, and what was really evident in that particular audience of future military leaders, was a failure to really understand the broad definition of national security. That it's not just a military, that it's diplomacy, it's information. It is a military, but it's also economic. It's all those dimensions wrapped in together. And what really enthralled me and thrills me about the new American arsenal, it is an opportunity to make sure people understand that there is a broad definition of national security. There's so many different tools that are available and can be used to address our needs for today and certainly for the future.
There are massive forces at work in our nation, and the kinds of discussions we have, and in the world, and the kind of discussions we have about those massive forces at work are, I think, embarrassingly superficial. And the quality of that discourse needs to be improved, and I view one of the principal missions of the American Security Project as helping foster the kind of conversations that need to take place, applying them to national security issues, and the new American arsenal as a framework around which those conversations can be molded.